on the ABC News Magazine. 2020 with Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters.
And is the movie Brazil playing at a theater near you? Critics loved it.
I was just flabbergasted.
But not the man who financed it.
They thought that the ending was not satisfying.
What followed was a battle that has rocked Hollywood and could influence what kind of films play in your town. Dick Schaap reports on Hollywood's battle over Brazil. Whose film is it anyway?
Brazil, the knock-'em-down, drag-'em-out fight between the maker of the film and the Hollywood studio that produced it. Who decides what's good art and what's good business? Dick Schaap takes you inside Brazil and inside a Hollywood battle fit for the movies. Brazil, whose film is it anyway? When 2020 continues.
Who among us at one time or another hasn't wanted more freedom to do something our own way and not the way the boss tells us? Well, those feelings are hardly uncommon. The trouble is we sometimes get into trouble when we act on them. The boss almost always wins, but not always. Terry Gilliam recently made the movie Brazil, now playing around the country. When the studio tried to make changes he didn't like, changes they were legally entitled to make, Gilliam took on the big guys and he won. As it turns out, so did they. Here is Dick Schaap.
Mesdames, Messieurs, bon appétit.
It is a bizarre story.
What are you doing?
It involves fascinating characters.
Harry Tuttle, heating engineer at your service.
It involves contracts and confrontation. It is hard to tell what is truth and what is fantasy. It is a story of desperation.
No, Jack, please.
And of a stirring last-minute rescue. It is this story we are speaking of, not the story on the screen, but the story behind the story of the movie Brazil. The fight to release the film in the United States. A conflict that echoes the conflict within the film. A conflict between the system and a man who bucks the system. In its simplest terms, the question is it Terry Gilliam's Brazil, or is it Sidney Sheinberg's?
At any time. We could do anything we wanted.
Sheinberg, bright and proper, a transplanted Texan, came out of Columbia Law School to become president and chief operating officer of MCA, the entertainment conglomerate whose Universal Pictures put up most of the money to make Brazil. He first saw the film a year ago.
It was brilliant in many ways, but notwithstanding that, I thought it was very long, and I thought it was partially inaccessible.
Inaccessible. Hollywood shorthand for maybe difficult to understand, maybe difficult to sell. And Gilliam, brash and mischievous, an American expatriate, came out of Britain's Monty Python comedy troupe to become creator, co-author, and director of Brazil.
It's the first thing I've done that I actually feel proud of. It's not bad. I mean, it's flawed like all of us. There's a lot wrong, but I think it's pretty powerful.
I certainly thought that the film needed some rethinking.
There's no way that I would let the film be changed. I just think it would be a total betrayal to everybody who worked on the film.
Jack Matthews, Hollywood reporter for the Los Angeles Times, says the battle over Brazil, the war between Sheinberg and Gilliam, between commerce and art, is the most important film story he has covered.
Here's a director saying, I'm not going to work with you anymore on this film, and I'm going to fight you, and I'm going to get my version released if it's possible. I think that's fighting words for anybody. I mean, that's drawing the line.
Terry Gilliam has been drawing lines for years. Long before Brazil, he was an animator who tweaked British sensibilities with these outrageously inventive cartoons he drew for the Monty Python TV show. Eventually, Gilliam decided he could have more fun animating people. He became a director.
Kick him, Wally! Kick him, Wally!
Gilliam has spent a decade honing his skills as a director, improving his eye, his instincts.
It's actually looking a bit fake now. The rehearsals actually look more real. Yes.
Hello, I'm Hood.
A few years ago, Gilliam directed a relatively inexpensive film called Time Bandits, which grossed a relatively astonishing $50 million. The cast included Python John Cleese as Robin Hood, who stole from the rich and from the short.
The poor are going to be absolutely thrilled. Have you met them at all? Who? The poor? The poor? Oh, you must meet them. I just know you'll like them.
Time Bandits' success encouraged Universal Pictures, which has never been confused with the poor, to put up $9 million toward the making of Brazil, a film Gilliam has described as Walter Mitty meets Franz Kafka, with a touch of George Orwell, too. 20th Century Fox put up $6 million for the international rights to Brazil's grotesquely comic story of a man who escapes from the oppression of a totalitarian society only in his dreams. Gilliam then went to work. He coaxed his fellow Python, Michael Palin, to play a sadist with charm. He persuaded Katherine Hellman from American TV to endure 5 hours a morning of makeup to play a woman addicted to plastic surgery.
He's close to something pretty spectacular as well as great fun to work with. And I think his mind flies, and I see in his eyes that same kind of glint of light that used to fly off of my grandmother's crochet needle.
He's somebody you work with. He doesn't, you don't work for him. He doesn't direct you per se. I mean,
Jonathan Pryce, like Hellman, was willing to suffer for art's sake and Gilliam's.
some of the flying was fun. A lot of it wasn't. I am naturally claustrophobic. Body casts and things. Fiberglass front and back. Fiberglass bodies, leather costume, stuck on a pole arm. And it was a true nightmare. I hated it.
Gilliam loved it, loved the result.
Every other shot is a different technique. One's real, one's a model, one's in the studio. And I don't think you can see where the joins are. Just the minute you think you might be seeing a model, there's a real person running in the way. And so it can't be a model, it's a real person. And to be able to do something as beautiful and floating and soaring as that was, it's great.
The result of Gilliam's creativity, casting, and coaxing is a film unquestionably original and visually striking. A powerful film that delights some viewers and depresses others. A film completed in 1984 on schedule and within budget. 20th Century Fox released Brazil in Europe early in 1985, and a Los Angeles film critic named Kenneth Turan happened to see it in Paris.
I was just flabbergasted. I had the kind of experience that you become a film critic for, where all of a sudden it's exciting and the screen is alive and you sense a great creative intelligence at work. And I said, like, where has this film been all my life?
Not in American movie theaters, because not everyone was so ecstatic. Sheinberg emerged from the Universal screening unhappy.
I thought that the ending was not satisfying.
There was a comment saying, I think we need a radical rethink.
I don't recall whether I ever used the word radical rethink, but I did not feel, having seen his edited version, that we had now the perfect piece of art, and it needed no further thinking.
Universal held back Brazil and pressured Gilliam with its strongest weapon, the contract he had signed, which said the film would not exceed 2 hours, 5 minutes. Gilliam had delivered Brazil at 2 hours, 22 minutes.
Had he delivered the picture in its contractual length, this controversy would never have existed.
I think he felt that if one could just take out a few of these disturbing elements, that there was a blockbuster beyond all blockbusters in this film.
Under pressure, Gilliam sliced 11 minutes from the American version, but refused to cut any deeper or to change the ending. Sheinberg raised the possibility Universal would make further cuts. Gilliam feared Universal might distort the film or bury it.
They could have sat on this film for the rest of their lives, and it wouldn't have made a dent in MCA. For us, it was everything, and so we took to the trees with our, our rifles.
Gilliam, ignoring a contractual ban on going public with the dispute, fired the first shot in Variety. a Dear Sid letter.
Sheinberg is refusing to release the movie.
Then spread the story on TV and in the press and set up clandestine screenings for critics.
I don't think he is a terrorist in the Gaddafi sense of the word, but I think that he has utilized a kind of terrorist, intellectual terrorism. He has fought the game without honoring the rules.
Gilliam won one battle. Stymied by the publicity, Sheinberg gave up trying to cut or change the film and said Brazil would be released in 1986. But Gilliam feared he had lost the war.
The film could have been released somewhere, in New Mexico in the mountains during a blizzard, and that would have fulfilled the contractual obligations. So at that point, I was convinced we were dead. And then, the fairy godmother appeared, and ding, you will go to the ball tonight.
In mid-December, the Los Angeles film critics waved their wands and performed a small miracle. They voted overwhelmingly for Brazil as Best Picture of the Year and for Gilliam as Best Director. A revolutionary development considering that the film had not been released in the United States.
Universal expected about 4 awards for Out of Africa, or Mask, or Back to the Future. And I said, I've got good news and bad news. You've got 5 awards, 3 of them are for Brazil. And they were very surprised.
But I wasn't surprised once I finished being surprised. And what I meant by that was I was surprised that a picture that had not been released in America won an award. That's not a common occurrence.
Here was this brilliant film, and I think everyone said, well, the hell with it. This is the best picture of the year, and we're going to vote for it, period. Let the chips fall where they may.
Brazil.
Brazil.
Brazil. Brazil. Brazil.
Stung and stunned, Universal promptly booked the film, Terry Gilliam's 2-hour and 11-minute version, into theaters in New York and Los Angeles to make it eligible for the Academy Awards. Lined up openings in other major cities, launched a modest publicity campaign.
I hope that the maximum number of people like it, and that I am proven to be totally wrong, that indeed this picture is very accessible to people.
Can you root for this film?
I can't root for this the way I would root for a Spielberg film or Out of Africa, not because of what I've, quote, gone through with it, but because I frankly don't think it's as good a film.
Gilliam, the filmmaker, quickly became Gilliam, the film promoter.
Can I have 923 for the next performance, please?
He frolicked with the long lines that greeted the film in New York.
Yeah, I love Time Bandits. It's great.
This is a lot stranger. So, well, you're older now, so you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Good luck. I think films should stimulate discussion more often than not.
Gilliam roamed from the cinemas to the campuses, spreading the gospel of Brazil to students, perhaps the film's most receptive audience.
Even when we began this battle, people were saying, don't do this. You can't take on the studios. You can't, there's no way you can do this. And I was stupid enough not to believe them. And we won.
Young directors will tell you it's the most important thing that's happened in years. It gives them hope. I mean, there's a chance here that they can make a movie and not have to bend to the studio or not have to bend to the people who put up the money.
Do you think it's conceivable that he could ever do another picture for Universal?
Certainly.
Well, if Brazil is a huge hit, I can see them sitting down very soon, talking about Brazil, too. That's what Hollywood's all about.
Well, Dick, what about Brazil 1? Is it making money?
Yeah, I think it is. It looks like Universal will at least get its money back and probably will do okay. I mean, it won't be Out of Africa, but it certainly won't be a bomb.
I know Sidney Sheinberg. He's very respected in the business. Now, the feeling usually is, the establishment, the motion picture companies, they're the monsters, the individual directors, they're terrific. Is it that good a film?
I loved it. I thought it was a great movie. But people whom I respect didn't love it that much. Sidney Sheinberg's own wife thinks it's a great movie, so Sheinberg says.
They must be having interesting conversations.
We didn't get a tape.
And Gilliam's a new name for us to pay attention to, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he's a genius. A mad genius, but a genius.
Thank you, Dick. It was fun to watch. And we'll be right back. It's Nightline, following your local news.
Tomorrow on ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, a look at how college kids' spring break frolic in Fort Lauderdale has authorities throwing their hands in the air with an all-time arrest record. Over 900 so far, and the worst, they say, still to come.
One final note. We at 2020 had intended to bring you a report tonight on the availability of terrorist literature in this country. We've postponed that report to a later date. And that is 2020 for tonight. We're in touch, so you be in touch. I'm Barbara Walters.
And I'm Hugh Downs.
And for all of us at 2020, good night.
Tomorrow on Good Morning America, John Stossel tells us if extended wear contact lenses are safe. And David Hartman bats against two of baseball's best pitchers, Dwight Gooden and Brett Saberhagen, tomorrow on Good Morning America.
For transcript of tonight's broadcast, send $3 to Journal Graphics, Box 2020, Ansonia Station, New York, New York, 10023. This has been the ABC News Magazine, 2020.